Hello and welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. We are on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And if you're listening to us right now on iTunes, go ahead and leave a 5-star review. I'm going to be doing stand up a lot this summer, going into the fall. This Thursday, tomorrow, I'll be at Bird and Betty's in Beach Haven, New Jersey. That is on the Jersey Shore. And then this weekend, I'm heading to New Orleans, going to be performing at the Comedy House in New Orleans this Friday and Saturday, August 13th and 14th, doing 4 shows out there. And then I'm heading to Vegas with comedians of the Compound. We'll be doing shows at the Plaza at the Comedy Works Theater there at the Plaza Hotel, September 10th and 11th. That's going to be myself, Gino Bisconti, Anthony Cumia, Aaron Berg, all the people you know and love from Compound Media will be there. So that's a great chance. If you're like a super fan of Compound Media, that's the show to go to for sure. And then I'll be back in Texas the weekend after that, September 17th and 18th. I'll be headlining Hyenas in Dallas. And then comedians of the Compound will be heading to Lakewood, New Jersey on October 16th for a stadium show at the Blue Claws Stadium out there in New Jersey. And then I'll be heading to California October 22nd and 23rd. I'll be headlining the Broadway Comedy Club West in Santa Monica. 4 shows out there. Also very exciting. Bridget Fetisi and Sam Tripoli will also be on those shows. So I mean, I was a little bit like, okay, California, how good could it be? But now I'm very stoked to do those shows. It's going to be great. Quick shout out to our sponsor, Cushy Dreams. They are my go-to for all things CBD related. Cushy Dreams specializes in high quality CBD bud and pre-rolls. They sell them in these nifty little 5-packs right here that I really like. They're very portable. The packaging is spot on. Everything is handmade. Nothing is machine trimmed or anything like that. You can enjoy all the health benefits of CBD without getting high. These products have under 0.3% THC in them. And you can join the men and women who are also sick of vapes and gummies and want to smoke their CBD. It's legal. It ships to all of the states. Looks and smells just like high quality marijuana, but it's not. There's different indica sativa blends like energy, peace, dream, relax, create, hustle, peace. So whatever you want to do with your day, Cushy Dreams has you covered. You can check out their website, cushydreams.com, KUSHY dreams.com. At checkout, use promo code CMP to get 20% off every order. I like them. It's helped me a lot with my anxiety. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm excited to have this guy on the podcast today. He really kind of puts my faith back into journalism. I feel like he is one of the few doing it right, and not just because he's writing about me. that doesn't hurt. He's been on the Dennis Prager show, the Adam Carolla show. He's an award-winning journalist, film critic, and founder of HollywoodInToto.com, the right take on entertainment. He previously worked for the Washington Times and Breitbart News. He's a contributor to the Daily Wire, JustTheNews.com, Real Clear Investigations, and the New York Post. His first book, Virtue Bombs: How Hollywood Got Woke and Lost Its Soul, drops in January. Christian Toto, good to have you.
Nice to be here. Thank you so much.
You sent me such a thorough intro for yourself. I appreciate it.
No problem. Yeah, I'm so famous. I thought I had to refresh you on the less boring aspects of my life. So
if you hadn't have sent me that, I would have just been like, look, he's here and he's got a lot of books and maybe DVDs behind him. That would have been my intro.
DVDs and Blu-rays.
DVDs and Blu-rays. Wow, welcome. It's so nice to see you. To see your face, because I've been such a fan of your writing for many, many months now that I'm just like, oh wow, you're a person.
Well, I appreciate all the work you do for free speech and free expression, and there aren't many people like you right now, which is a shame. But at least you're fighting a good fight.
Oh, shucks. Thanks. I really liked your coverage of Tyler Fisher, because he's someone who I stumbled on kind of recently, and like his story really spoke to me, because it's like I had a feeling that white guys were being discriminated against, but It wasn't until I spoke to him that I realized how blatant it was and how in your face these agents and managers are about it, and no one seems to like apologize for it. And it's wild that like you're one of the few journalists talking about this.
Yeah, you think that would be a big story. Shouldn't it be a big story? If you discriminate against people of color, that's a big story. You discriminate against any group, that's a story. But that's not the way that journalism works these days. In a way, I get to kind of do what I do and write what I write, and maybe it gets me more attention. But I don't even want that. I think everyone should be talking about these topics. So but we're not there yet.
And you weren't always, I'm going to read more about your background. You're from Long Island, so that's immediately like a +1. What town? What town in Long Island are you from?
I grew up in Great River, which is near East Islip, which is near Islip, if that's helpful. Kind of not east of the island, but sort of in that general direction.
Yes, I'm familiar. Yeah, Islip, that's like where the nice houses are. I think that's how I know Long Island. I'm like, oh, restaurants, nice houses, and then right. And basically, like, I don't know, growing up on Long Island, like, it's just so funny because you see anybody just walking around and you're like, oh, they're poor. And then I spend like 10, 11 years in the city and I just like haven't had a car since. And I just like walk everywhere. But good old Long Island, there's a soft spot in my heart for anybody from Long Island. I think very special people come out of Long Island, and like maybe part of it's the chemical testing, maybe part of it's that we're just sort of like most people, like they're from Long Island, their family, they stay out there forever. It's like it seems rare that you'll escape until now, really recently with the taxes. Like that's my family kind of got fed up with the taxes and the traffic, and that's why they left.
Yeah, my parents, I thought they would never ever leave, but they left mostly for the taxes. So that chased them away. And I have to say, when I went to college, I didn't realize I talked funny, but I did. And it's mostly gone now, but it still kind of pops up now and then.
I wanted to, and I've talked about this a lot. Like I wanted to be a reporter when I was in college, so I made a real attempt to like dissolve my Long Island accent, and then I was like, oh, I don't want to be a reporter. Like that seems boring. I'd have to move out to Alaska or something and work my way back. Anyway, long story short, I'm annoyed. I want to bring the Long Island accent back. I'm just like, what's the point? I might as well just embrace my trashy roots and
Well, you don't sound like that. How did you kind of lose the accent?
It was through watching a lot of like well, not CNN. I wasn't really watching until like college, but yeah, like watching a lot of like NBC and just being like, oh, okay. Nobody's like, oh, there's a huge traffic jam on I-95. Oh my God. I'm like, oh, nobody sounds like that. So you learn like which vowels or which words are like really offensive, and then you try to like dumb it down. And then you meet people from other places who say words totally like water is usually what gives it away, but then you meet people who say water and you're like, well, I can't fucking do that.
I moved to Pittsburgh after college, and I thought, okay, this was a worse accent than Long Island, so that one's a rough one. But I didn't stick around long enough to get it.
You kind of look like my very first boyfriend, Brian with a Y, who was from Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay.
I'll try not to let that trigger me. Okay. Well,
I didn't do you wrong.
Okay, good. Christian, you were not always a fighter for free speech. You kind of came up through, kind of the more mainstream channels. You worked at the Pittsburgh Tribune Review before moving to DC, and then you started working for the Washington Times. Do you want to explain like how you got from there, sort of, from the Washington Times to then working in entertainment?
Yeah, I mean, when I went to college, I wanted to be an artist, and then I couldn't draw hands and feet. I'm thinking, not a good sign. So I switched into journalism. And when I moved to DC, I really wasn't political at all. And I ended up at a right-of-center newspaper, but it was just a job. And I really just wanted to write entertainment. And then I drove past the Pentagon one morning, and an hour or so later, it was tacked. And, the 9/11 situation really kind of awakened me not just the politics, but, which party had which reaction to it. And I saw one party saying, maybe we should get the people who did this, and maybe this is one of the worst atrocities in the country's history. And the other party was like, well, did we deserve this? What did we do wrong? And I kind of picked sides pretty quickly. So, and then, as years went on, I was covering entertainment, and I thought, well, everyone who does this is left of center. I mean, I'd say 98, 99% of the people who are covering Hollywood are either hardcore left or generally left or just kind of middle of the road. And I thought, well, half the country's right. Well, don't they need a voice? So I decided to kind of lean into that. I was conservative. It kind of was organic to me. And I just decided this is my mission. So that's what I've been doing ever since.
I wonder if it's because most folks that are like conservative or Republican leaning, they're like, well, they're not gonna, they're less, it's like it's a chicken or the egg, right? Are they less interested in Hollywood because they don't see themselves represented? Or are they just their interests tend to not lie in like whatever covering like the soft subjects like entertainment or celebrities because they're like, oh, I'm conservative, so I care more about finance or government. I don't know. It's
I don't know. I think people who are left of center do drift into journalism. And, I talked to lots of people who are very passionate about pop culture and Marvel movies and comedians. So I don't think that's it. But, the industry is overwhelmingly left of center, though those on the right just they pipe down for obvious reasons. But I don't know how it is, but it is. And, with all this talk about diversity and we need more people of color, in film criticism in Hollywood, I often agree. I think everyone should be sort of have access to whatever they want to do. But there's never a thought of, well, if 99% of film critics are left of center, isn't there sort of a problem there? But they don't seem to see it that way. So I just kind of trudge on.
Yeah, it's really insane. Like just for years now, we've been hearing about like, oh, we're all about diversity. Every voice matters, and then you're like, that is such a load of bullshit. It's like the voices that they want to elevate are the ones that matters. Like, speak your truth only matters if you're also echoing, like the message or, it's like what they want to hear. It's like
Yeah,
really
I've been in this game for over
angry.
20 years now, and it's changed a lot. Like back in the day, Roger Ebert would be pretty fair. You might be able to sense that he was left of center, which he was, but it didn't sort of overwhelm you. And now, if you don't have enough people of color in a movie, that gets a demerit. If the themes are vaguely right of center, that's not acceptable. I actually wrote about this in my upcoming book. There was a critic who wrote a movie review about a science fiction film. It was a teenager fighting aliens, trying to save his family, and he gets I think he gets like a ray gun or some sort of space technology. It's a gun. The critic freaked out, gave it an F, and said, "How dare they put a gun in the hands of this teenager?" Well, it's a movie. I'm pretty sure it was a space gun, and he's trying to save his mom and dad or his parents or some, members of the family. How is that, not applicable here? And also, why would you give it an F for that reason? He was just outraged, and this was a mainstream, news organization. I think it was Entertainment Weekly did this. So, we're not talking about The Nation or some sort of far left outlet. This is what we see. And they are trying to steer Hollywood in that direction. They don't want sort of a full expression of ideas.
And to me, it seems like most celebrities are just like happy to go with the flow of whoever's going to pay them. And like, if they stand for something different, they're certainly not going to make that known because it's like they're just trying to get that bag.
Mhm.
They don't want to mess with their coins.
I think Joe Rogan's talked about that when you arrive in Hollywood, there's sort of a mindset already existing. And you don't want to kind of rock that boat. I mean, if you're a young person trying to get your first job, why would you kind of anger someone who's going to be interviewing you or auditioning you? So people stay quiet. And there's lots of virtue signaling going on. There's some sort of event going on. You kind of put something on Instagram. I don't know if half these stars believe it or care about it. They just think this is like career survival. I kind of feel for them to be so nervous about your career that you have to kind of do these things, but they do it. And some are true believers, but I think a lot of them it's just fear.
Was 9/11 the first event that made you question, mainstream messaging or mainstream news?
No, and I don't think it was as bad at the moment. I was really kind of not aware of the biases in the press. And that sort of grew over the last maybe 10, 15 years. But boy, I mean, the bias is on steroids right now. It is comical. And I have to say, I really am surprised that people who are either center left or independents, I don't know how they don't see it. It's so obvious. Maybe the best example is the Hunter Biden laptop story where, everyone's
Yeah.
on it. Big tech just wiped it out. Journalists were saying, well, it could be Russian disinformation with no facts, with no sort of curiosity. No, I'm not a news journalist. I'm an entertainment journalist. But when you think, oh my gosh, this is a great story, I've got to hunt this down. If it's fake, I got to debunk it. If it's true, I'm all in. Like, where's the curiosity? It's all activism right now. It's shocking to watch, and it seems to get worse every week, which doesn't seem possible, but it is.
The Hunter Biden laptop thing really shocked me too, because it's like, if you wanted to at the time, like, you could pull up like real images that were like, as disturbing as so many of them were, like real images from the laptop. It's clearly him. They would blur out like whoever they thought it might have been, Lady Gaga with him, or like some other unnamed bunch of girls, like their faces might have been blurred out in some of them, but you're like, that's clearly him, and he's clearly smoking a crack pipe. That's clearly him in a pink scarf in front of, and I'm like, man, this is a vain dude. Like, I take a lot of pictures. Like, I don't know. I was like, is this guy taking photos? It's like selfies and videos of himself every time he lights up a crack pipe, every time he's just chilling. Like, he had recorded like fights with what was it? His brother who died, like the wife that he ended up like banging and seeing. I was just like, yeah, why are you recording like your fights and recording? Like, it seems like a lot of meaningless things he was doing. I mean, not like smoking crack is, maybe that's worth capturing for him. But I
That's
was like,
right. You don't want to be getting
this is
involved.
really him. Like, these are actually him. How do you deny that? And I'm sure enough people saved them that you could still, even now, see these images and see this content.
Yeah. What's interesting is going into last year's election, I thought, I know the press is biased. I know they're corrupt. But if a big story blew up and it really made the Biden team look bad, would they cover it or would they hide it? And even back then, I was so naive. Just months ago, I thought, they can't hide it. They'd have to. I mean, they would cover it begrudgingly, but they can't just ignore it or make it go away. They ignored it and made it go away. It's just amazing. And listen, Hunter Biden obviously thinks he's a millennial with all these selfies. So I mean, God help, God bless him for feeling so eternally young.
Yeah, he acts like a 20-year-old chick who just like just left college, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really know what I'm doing myself. I'm trying to find myself. Like, I had a time, I was doing some drugs, but now like I'm painting, you know what I mean? Like, buy one of my paintings. Or like
And by the way, Chrissy, Morgan Wallen, the country star, said the N word in a private moment that was caught on video, went viral. I mean, his career has been just devastated. And yet Hunter Biden used the N word. I think he used maybe an Asian slur as well. That was revealed and nothing happens to him. I mean, I don't know how a sane person can see those two events and just say, oh yeah, the press is honest and fair. I mean, I don't know how you keep up that facade, but it's there. I mean, I know all my friends who are left of center. They don't see a problem with that.
The media did such a good job of sowing hatred with Trump. Anyone who supported Trump, any conservative Republican, like the seeds of hate were planted so well and grown over the last, like, the 4 years that Trump was in office. And now that it's like, oh, the other team won, like Biden won, it's like you can completely disregard that the whole like rules for thee, not for me. You can completely disregard like, well, if any of Trump's kids were guilty of these things or found with these images, like they can completely put that out of their mind because they're just so happy that their team won, that like nothing has to make sense. Things don't have to be fair and equal between the two sides.
Well, I mean, I think that puts us in a cultural pickle. It's so obvious what's going on. The hypocrisy is off the charts, and the people who are being hypocritical, they don't care if you point it out. I mean, look on Twitter. There are journalists who they post a story. You read the replies. It is a shellacking. They are just completely. Their clocks are cleaned. They don't care. They don't change their behavior. They don't learn. They don't grow. So, what is the next step? I think I think for people who are either on the right or just clear thinking, we need to kind of just basically debunk the fact that the media is telling you the truth. I don't know how to do it. I mean, I feel like there's got to be some sort of marketing genius out there who's got to really kind of do a campaign that would not alienate people, but that would just say, hey, they're lying. They're lying constantly. And you need to be aware of that and act accordingly. But we're not, I don't know who's going to do that. We
I
need it.
think for I think for a long time, like the right or conservatives or anybody who's like not a crazy liberal would think, I feel like there's a lot of conversation about like, well, we're not going to stoop to their level. We're not going to do what they do. And things didn't really get better. So I wonder if a lot of people are waking up to like, oh, maybe we have to kind of do it their way. Um, get our hands dirty a little bit, play how they play. I don't know. We're just, yeah.
Yeah,
And then
quick
sometimes
point
you're
about
like, well, it's not my job to wake people up. Whatever, you're all on your own. And then like the next day I'll be like, okay, no, I'm back to wanting to help people again.
You mentioned the Trump hatred. I have had a good friend, known him for 2 decades. He was in my wedding, and he's sort of generally right of center, but not. I'm sort of more right of center. And I noticed he just loathed Trump, hated Trump, hated Trump. And it's fine, whatever. Trump is abrasive. I get it. And I feel like our friendship was sort of a little less solid than it used to be. And then one point we were talking, and I brought up Cuomo. He's like, "Oh yeah, I think Cuomo's the best. He's so sober. He's so wonderful." And I disagreed, and I kind of mentioned the nursing homes at the time. And he's like, "Oh no, no, no." And then somehow Russian collusion came up, and he's like, "Oh, I believe it." Even this is after all the stuff has come out, after he learned it was nonsense. And we're on the phone, and he said, "I can't take this anymore." He hung up on me. And that's the last time I've spoken to him.
When was that?
A year ago. And I think it was, I think back on it and I think, why. And I think you said the Trump hatred. So he knew that I didn't despise Trump. And I think he just month after month, day after day, just thought, I don't know if I can be friends with this guy who just doesn't despise Trump with the ferocity that I do. It's my only guess. I mean, I just don't know why. Like, we weren't even yelling at each other. We weren't, shouting profanities. It was getting heated, but, we're friends. We've been friends for decades. Why would you hang up on me? And that's it.
It's because the division is so real. Like the media did such a good job of creating two completely different realities. And you hate to like, name call someone and be like, oh, you're clearly brainwashed. Nobody wants to be told that. Nobody on either side wants to be told that they're wrong. And of course you can make an argument for people on the right that have been brainwashed to a degree. I just think it's far worse for the people that just have CNN on 24/7, are falling asleep to the news. It's like once you create a real division and two separate realities, it's like, well, then that leap to like, oh yeah, well we have different rules. Oh well, we can play dirty and they don't have to. It's like, oh, it's a lot easier to operate in a way that doesn't make sense because you've already put yourself above a whole half of the population of the country, I guess.
Yeah. Last year they had this Showtime miniseries, The Comey Rule. And all the information it was like they hadn't learned anything new since those events happened. Like we hadn't learned the Mueller report, hadn't learned all the chicanery behind the scenes with the FBI. Here's this massive double night feature sharing all this complete nonsense. And the critics are like, oh, this is wonderful and great performances and so fact-based. And it was garbage, but a major network, Showtime, but I think it might have been $40 million behind it. So that's what we're up against. Even if you read all the news and you're up to speed on things, you've got a major channel saying, here's a fake news story that we're telling you is real. It's why I do what I do, because pop culture generally matters. And I think conservatives have been terrible in that message. And now we're finding out why.
There's been no conservative pop culture. It's like, I guess like their values are sort of like used against them, right? If they're going to be less obsessing about celebrity culture, like that's all I did years ago would sit and watch like E! News or like Entertainment Tonight with my mom and my sister. And we just, I don't know. And maybe we like got interested in it because she was really interested in it, but just you have this like automatic kind of like obsession, fascination with celebrities. And it feels like conservatives, like, yeah, maybe they are more like religion minded. They are more like business minded, like thinking about things that matter. But they are kind of like have been losing the pop culture war, I guess. It's like if the conservatives can kind of work on their own, I don't know, not like we need to have our own pop culture. It sounds weird to say that, but you do see it with some of these like younger, and I hate even saying the word influencers, but like, political commentators, political analysts, some of these like, people in their like 20s and 30s, gaining tons of followers, like that work for like The Blaze or, the Daily Wire. Like you do start to see like, oh, I like this person. I like their personality. And then they can gain a big following and then they can help kind of call people over. Just like that's why Walk Away was such a powerful movement because they weren't like decidedly right. They were just like, oh, we're mostly kind of, it was like led by a gay guy who was like, oh, the left is not, it doesn't suit my needs. It's like, it's a, it's a trick really.
Yeah. A couple of quick thoughts. One is look at late night TV. Every show is left of center. I know Gutfeld on Fox, but it's not a traditional talk show. It's got some different elements in there. But why wouldn't any executive say, oh my gosh, every show is left of center? How about we kind of buck that trend, find a smart like yourself, right of center, or at least free thinking comedian who's willing to hit both sides and just put it out there. Why would you not try that? They're leaving money on the table. And by the way, look at your story. The pandemic comes, you kind of ramp up your podcast, you're doing well, you're an independent woman kind of blazing your own path, kind of shirking off what's going on. How many stories are written about you in the mainstream press?
Well, just yours, Christian. No, not enough. And it's, I have like my own insecurities. There's like the part of like the, what's it called? What's it called when the imposter syndrome, that you're like, oh, I'm like not doing enough. I'm not good enough. So like there's part of that going on. But yeah, it's like a little bit sad. Like I'm never going to be like a Comedy Central industry darling. And it's like, maybe if I had stayed woke, like maybe I could have, made a little bit of a name for myself there. And that's the thing. That's what, if you're like a white girl or a white guy, like you have to be, you have to be all about wokeness and inclusivity and diversity. You have to be singing that song, or else you're just going to be kicked out because you're a white person. You have to be.
You sleep better at night, though, right? I mean, you're not selling yourself.
Yeah. It's like I'd so much rather be less popular than feel like I'm living a lie every day. Plus, it's a lot harder to keep up. And yeah, I lost a ton of friends too, just sort of like step by step, getting a show on Compound Media, and then no longer doing a show at the Stonewall Inn. So, and it's amazing how just getting that show just changed folks' opinions of me, because my sense of humor hadn't changed at all. But it's interesting, the more people I talk to, it's like we're all losing friends because of this. And the friend of yours that you haven't talked to in a year, like how long? You said he was like a lifelong friend of yours?
2 decades. I met him in the 90s.
Holy, yeah, that's pretty legit. I mean, these were just comedy friends of mine. That's 20 years.
Yeah, it's amazing. And by the way, I want to mention another personality who's kind of really interesting is Tom McDonald. He's a rapper. And
yes, I love him.
Rap name ever, Tom McDonald? Now, here's another guy who's just like doing it on his own. I actually reached out to him for a story. I don't think he even had a publicist. He just wrote me back. And he's just crushing it on iTunes. His videos get like 1 million views in like a snap, but he doesn't get covered either. It's just so fascinating. It's just, it's an ecosystem. And one of the things that I cover is like certain artists, certain themes, certain topics, certain poses are embraced and elevated, and certain ones aren't. And, but I think what you're finding and other people in your space is that there's a hunger for that. Like look at Ryan Long and JP Sears and Tyler Fisher. I mean, these are funny people. They should have a platform, and they have an audience now. It's growing. They're doing it on their own. They're kind of bucking the trend. These are the pioneers. These are the people who kind of had that Lenny Bruce spirit. And the people just, the Stephen Colbert's, I mean, what he's going to say before he says it. The angles, it won't be funny. I almost feel badly for him.
And you've interviewed like a lot of stars. Like you've interviewed Tom Hanks, Bradley Cooper, Will Smith, John Travolta. You've interviewed Tim Robbins. Like you've interviewed a lot of high profile people. What are the differences that you're kind of finding now? I guess, I don't know, what would you call like me and I don't know, like smaller level comedians or lesser known entertainers? Like what are you finding like the differences are?
Well, I mean, I think some of those people that you mentioned, I feel like they're more polished. They've done 1 million interviews. They kind of know the beats that they have to hit in an interview to kind of promote their product. It's hard to kind of peel away the shell and find out who they are. I interviewed Tom McDonald a few months ago, and he was really vulnerable to me. Like it was kind of odd. Like he felt like he was like opening up. It didn't feel like shtick. And when you and I have talked in the past, it's not sort of this veneer. And so I think it's hard to kind of get past that. Remember a couple of years ago, I interviewed Jeff Foxworthy. He was very nice. And the first half of the interview was awful. And I blame myself in part. Like he was just kind of spitting out robotic answers because he's done 1 million interviews. But then after a while, we kind of connected a bit and had a nice chat. But yeah, I mean, the big stars, I mean, when I interview some people, sometimes I might be the 15th interview they had that day. And this is like month after month, year after year. So I kind of get that they're all exhausted. They kind of have a routine. But, but now I haven't interviewed a big star very recently. I would think they're even more guarded because they know they can get in trouble for saying the wrong thing.
So they're do you think, were you getting the feeling that they're kind of given notes of like what to say or what
I
not
think
to
they're probably
say?
savvy enough to know what they need to say and hit the beats they want to hit. I would think so. I think it's just part of the machine. But they do it. I mean, they have publicists who kind of shepherd them in and shepherd them out. So I think if there's if there's a false note shared, they might say, hey, so and so, maybe you should not talk about that. I imagine there's some handling involved as well. I bet.
And I think these big stars, like they get nervous that whoever they do an interview with, like might try to do a gotcha. Because you mentioned that Tim Robbins recorded the interview that you did with him. I guess in case you were trying to like trash him or do like a gotcha.
Yeah, I was working at the Washington Times, which was a right of center paper, and he was nice and talked to me, had a good conversation. But he was recording me as I was recording him, so I think he maybe thought I better be on my guard. I don't even mind that. I had no problem with it. And he can, if I did something that was untoward or kind of cruel or took him way out of context, I should be busted for it, honestly.
Yeah, but you're like so not that kind of guy. I'm sure. I don't know. I wonder if anybody has felt like relieved after having spoken to you, like, oh, this isn't. He's not a POS trying to make me look bad. And
But I mean, they don't know
also,
that when they walk in, so it's kind of a new experience every time.
and okay, so were you interviewed Christian Slater and he flirted with the photographer that was assigned to cover his interview? Like was she like shooting while you were
Yes.
interviewing him and he was just
It was
flirting while this was going on?
it was kind of like the thing. Like I would show up, and there was a photographer from my paper. We'd show up together, and then he or she would take pictures as we're talking. He would to get like an animated shot rather than just like a portrait. It happened a lot, but this particular photographer was pretty attractive, and Christian was on his game. He was like answering me and also kind of flirting with her and making faces at her. It was very funny.
Do you remember like what he was saying?
You can just see the expressions and the fact that normally the person never kind of connects with the photographer. Like they're talking with me, we're having a conversation. The photographer is kind of catching them off guard in animated moments. But he was kind of more interested in her than me. And it's funny because he's had a pretty rough past, and I was trying to gently kind of go there, even in a way like, what have you learned from that? I wasn't trying to be a jerk, and he wasn't having it. He's like, oh, life is a roller coaster. But he was giving me super ham canned answers.
Why was he on like a lot of drugs or something?
Oh, I don't know, but it wasn't one of my favorite interviews. So,
Was he like the worst interview you've ever had?
um, he was among the worst. I have to say, when I interview the celebrities, for the most part, they're on their best behavior. They're very kind. I mean, listen, I'm there to promote their stuff, and they're not going to screw that up. So, and George Clooney was spectacular. Matter of fact, I did my first junket where all the journalists go to like a certain place and they interview the stars kind of back to back to back. And I was younger then, and it was a perfect storm. So he wasn't a big movie star. And I remember he was kind of shuffling off to his trailer, and I kind of stopped him and talked to him like, who the hell am I? He just shoo me away, but he was very cool. We had a nice conversation. He talked about making a brother we're out there. So he seemed like a
Ooh.
pretty regular guy. I mean, now
I
he's fabulously wealthy, but
So you caught him like a little bit on his way up. So maybe he
yeah.
was,
And he
yeah.
was he was very kind. So I give him credit.
Okay, so he surprised you. Anybody like who you remember was just not fun at all to interview, like very, very tight, not giving you anything, not having fun themselves.
Yeah, that same junket, Diane Lane, is a good actress. She was like our first interview, and that's my first time at a junket. It's like a whole. If you see America's Sweethearts, I think the movie is with John Cusack and maybe Julia Roberts or maybe Catherine Zeta-Jones. That kind of shows the behind the scenes of a junket where all the journalists come. And she was just like tired and bored and just not really giving much energy, not giving much of anything. And the next interview was Mark Wahlberg, who just like jumped in the room, was like full of energy, full of hype, and full of everything. And he was kind of cool. Hugh Jackman was excellent, just full of energy and kind of fun. And John Travolta was kind of good too. So
Ooh.
this is their shtick. This is what they do. They're getting paid millions of dollars to star in movies and then pimp them out. I mean, it's the job.
So you started Hollywood and Toto in 2014, primarily to offer movie reviews to appeal to half of the country that most film critics tend to ignore. Do you remember the first couple of movies you reviewed, or what your first couple of pieces were?
I don't specifically, but my first reviews ever, I reviewed Wild Bill with Jeff Bridges, but my favorite was I reviewed Batman and Robin. I was subbing for the film critic at the time. And I think my first words were like, pow, bam, thud, because it was a horrible movie. So, but that was like a real thrill.
Thud, yeah.
It was a bit of a clunker. I don't think I have to get it. I don't think people would disagree with me on that. But, it's funny. I've been rereading some of my older stories, just kind of cleaning up my website and kind of trashing some stories that just are dated and don't really matter. And anyone, it's like when you first do a podcast, your first few episodes are probably kind of terrible. You're just new at this. You got to get the reps. And I think as a film blogger, I just was terrible and needed the reps because a lot of the work was pretty mediocre. So, but hopefully I'm a little better now.
Have you gotten sort of a backlash at all from like any of your like previous colleagues, or other than that one friend of 20 years who couldn't handle that you liked Trump? Any of your former colleagues kind of like diss you, or any kind of backlash for starting to like move more, like I guess to the right?
I've been generally pretty careful. I don't really throw a lot of sharp elbows. I try not to be unprofessional. I think I've done a fair job of kind of navigating being right of center, but being respectful and being, journalistically sound. I did have a colleague do an interview for my site. It was a musician for a TV show, and he was a musician. So I kind of said, "Hey, can you do this for me? You've got more skill than I do." And then after it all ran, the publicist wrote me back and said, "Can you take that down? My client is unhappy." I'm like, why? I mean, you pitched me. What's going on? Well, it's a conservative site and we don't really like that and we don't want that on there. So I've had a couple of moments like that, but I've done okay. And, obviously it's Hollywood. They want press, they want publicity. So at the end of the day, if I'm writing about their project, then that's what they want. They want it out there. It's all about brand awareness and just getting the word out. And there's so much content out there now. You got to get some sort of attention. You got to get some sort of wrinkle,
Yeah, you're just putting a dent in, which is sometimes a dent is all you need. And you do have some experience with I guess not throwing elbows, because is this true, you're married to a Bernie Sanders fan?
Yes, I am.
So
Yeah,
how was 2016 for you guys?
Lousy. It was really bad. It was funny because I was really anti-Trump at the time. I didn't want him for my party's nominee. I wrote a column about it, how Trump has brought my wife and I together politically for the first time ever because we both disliked him. And I didn't vote for him at the time. I did last time. And boy, that the next day after the election, it was bad. And it was bad for a few weeks, I have to say. So, our sort of unofficial policy, we just don't talk about stuff. And but that didn't it didn't help at the time. But things are better now. So. But it's good because, like, if I want to get on a high horse and say, I'm right and she's wrong, or conservatives are right and liberals are always wrong. Here's my wife, who's a beautiful, smart woman who's been so supportive of my career. So, it'd be ridiculous for me to think, to sort of demean people for being left of center. I mean, I want everyone to be, have an opportunity. And at this point now, Ricky Gervais, I couldn't love him anymore. His politics are completely different than mine, but he's a free speech warrior. Mm-hmm. He's doing exactly what a comedian should be doing, like you are. And I don't care that he votes a different way than me. He's fighting for the First Amendment and free speech and being able to tell the jokes you want to tell. That's far more important than what he thinks about, like, the minimum wage.
I wondered after he hosted, I forget what award show it was, but that whole speech that was it Golden Globes? It went viral. Everybody you can find snippets of it anywhere. I was like, is he like, what's going on with him? Is he super connected, divinely protected? Like, what is going on? Like, how is he able to say what he was, what he said, and like still be living and like still be thriving and have a career? It was like such an amazing breath of fresh air. And he's definitely one of my like comedic inspirations for sure. And just when I think of whatever this my part is in this like free speech fight, I think of him. I think of Adam Carolla, definitely Joe Rogan too, which you've covered him quite a bit. Let me pull up this article. What were you gonna say?
I was just saying, what do these people have in common? They don't apologize. And the woke movement, it's at its core, it's bullying. If they know that you're going to kind of cower and you're going to do the hostage apology, then they kind of go after you. But they don't touch Adam Carolla. A, he's got his own pirate ship, as he calls it. But B, they just know they're not going to squeeze an apology out of him. So they kind of move on. And I think Ricky Gervais has a similar thing going on where they just know he's not going to give a damn. And so they don't pick on them. I think South Park gets some of that protection as well. I think they still could be canceled. I think anyone could be canceled, especially if you got corporate people, pulling the strings and cashing your checks. But I think when you don't apologize, you make it an official policy. That matters. Adam Carolla said, it's one of my favorite quotes. He said, if you retreat, they encroach. So you give the hostage apology, they're on you, and they'll be on you again. And you can see it's so sad to listen to like a Tina Fey, who's very funny and very smart, and very sharp. And a few years ago, she said, I don't make it a policy to explain my jokes. Well, she makes it a policy now. She is. She's been re-educated, and it's a shame. She's super talented, and I just wish that she was someone who was speaking out against this toxic trend, because it'd be great. We need everyone on our side for this. This isn't just politics. This is cultural. This is a dangerous slope we're down, and we need everyone to fight. Really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really not a left versus right thing anymore, and it's like I don't know what some folks need to wake up and see that that's what it's. I don't know. It's about it's about like this country, our freedoms, our future. So, all you can do is take it day by day and like do the best work that you can. And you made a really good point. And you think about all those guys like Carolla and Rogan, even he'll sometimes apologize. But he also kind of doesn't really give a fuck either. Like if he apologizes, he doesn't make it the end of the, like, it's not, he won't just shut up.
He apologizes if he gets a fact wrong, which is perfectly fine. It's like, if I cheat on my wife, I'm pretty sure I should apologize. But if I have the wrong thought, I shouldn't apologize. There's a difference there.
Yeah, and that is truly the only way to make yourself uncancelable is to never, especially if you're a comedian, never apologize. It only makes you stronger, and it does. And I think about like all the times that I've been canceled, and I'm like, you know what? Like, I feel like it's been a while since I've had like a full scale a cancellation attempt on me. And I wonder if that's because I don't apologize and I don't back down. And it's like, right, if you don't show any weakness, then they're gonna go look for somebody else who is weaker and who will apologize, who they can walk all over.
Yeah. It's just what amazes me is sort of the tone of the apologies. It's I mean, they're all the same. It's the same script. I want to be an ally. I'm so sorry I offended people. It's disgusting. It really is. And what I find amazing though about this whole situation is that if it's the grocer down the street who gets attacked by the local mob, he's trying to feed his family. I get that. And he may have to do that just to kind of keep feeding his family. But when a Scarlett Johansson takes a role and the sort of the woke community says you can't have that role, not only does she apologize, but she goes through the apology tour. She apologizes multiple times. I mean, she's one of the most attractive, talented, wealthiest women you'll ever meet. And she buckles like, in a day. So if she can't, stand tall, it sends a very tough message.
Yeah, you wonder like, and this is also like what these actors and actresses train for. Like that's part of their training is to like play someone who's different than them. I'm sure I'd be interested to know if acting schools are different now. It's like, well, like we will teach you the skills you need, but like you probably shouldn't try to get a role of someone whose skin color is different than yours because that's not the right thing to do.
And part of all of this is that Hollywood has done a terrible job with minorities and with women over the years. You can look at the statistics; they're frightening. They've done a bad job, and there's this real collective guilt in the industry that we did people wrong. We should have been more open to other people, other voices. And that's all I want. I'm sure it's all you want. Just like if a person comes into my office and he's black and he's got a great script, let's go. Let's not discriminate him because he's black. Let's just say, what's the script? I love it. Let's go. Let's get some money together. That's the way it should be. Not like, well, we have to kind of check a quota system. There was a story recently about Modern Family, or actually it wasn't about Modern Family. It was about a major network saying, well, we can't accept certain pitches now because they're not diverse enough. Well, I'm binging Modern Family now. It's one of the best TV shows ever. That show is mostly white. There are some people of color in there. There's a gay couple. But if you crunch the numbers like the way this broadcasting company did, you wouldn't get that show on the air. one of the best shows on TV that won dozens of Emmys, 11 seasons, wouldn't be on the air today. I mean, what else do you need to hear?
Yeah, it's just it's like, and we probably grew up around the same time. It's just like race was not something I grew up thinking about or obsessing about. Like I was watching, what did I love to watch? Like Mad TV, Family Matters, and then like Married with Children and The Simpsons. Like those shows really like shaped me for better or
I
for
watched
worse.
I watched the Jeffersons, What's Happening, Good Times, Sanford and Son.
Mhm.
Those are my favorite shows.
Yeah. And I want to talk about Joe Rogan, who you've covered, who I think is pretty amazing. He's very powerful. He's definitely a threat. He scares mainstream media. And here's an article that you wrote about him for the New York Post. No big deal, just the Post. The only reason the media tries to cancel Joe Rogan is because he terrifies them. And to your point before, like if he factually gets something wrong, sure, he'll apologize, but he is not weak and he doesn't apologize for having an opinion. Um, and here is right. And these are the short list of complaints. These are the main reasons you pointed out why he's such a threat. He speaks to people on the fringe, like Alex Jones. He will give, quote, problematic voices like Abigail Shrier, a critic of the trans agenda, a platform. He is willing to question the government's COVID-19 dog-eared rule book. He's willing to curse out cancel culture, and he's a big fan of free speech. And I think, people at times were worried, oh, like, were they trying to censor him? Oh, did they get him to Spotify so they could control him a little bit easier? Um, I mean, I want to hear your thoughts on, like, you know, I guess the Joe Rogan effect. I mean, he's such a good example of somebody who kind of was like an everyman and then worked really hard, built this huge platform, and now it's like, oh, well, now we don't like what he says all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think Spotify signed him because it's just money. He's wildly successful. He's got a huge audience, and they saw that, and that's perfectly fine. But I think what they didn't realize is that there'd be kind of a culture war that comes with his success and his fame. And the people who work for the company don't like the fact that he says certain things or shares certain opinions. So it's really tricky. So what happens next? I don't know. I think he put himself at risk by joining this company because he just should have known what the culture is at the time. He was fabulously wealthy, I'm sure, beforehand. He's much more now. But let's see if he sticks to his guns. And it sounds like the Spotify CEO has his back. But, you don't know where the culture is going. After the George Floyd protests, they were taking down content left and right and warning labels. So if there's another event in our lives there where we get extra sensitive again, then maybe he's gone. We'll have to see. But talking to everyone is fascinating to me. I think it's what he should do. At the end of the day, he's a comedian. Mm-hmm. He's not a guy running for office. Why do we even care? We're allowed to tell jokes and say crazy things. I grew up on Howard Stern. He said the craziest things in the world. It was just ridiculous. And I didn't go vote based on what he said. He made me laugh. He made me think. He kind of made me uncomfortable at times. But that's what comedians do. But why we're just suddenly holding them to a different standard. And and I think we can all laugh at jokes that are uncomfortable, maybe even mean. I mean, what have we been laughing at for the last 50 years? People getting pies thrown in their face, people's getting hit in the groin by a ball on Funniest Home Videos. There is a darkness to laughter sometimes, and it's kind of human nature. I don't know if we can chase that away.
Absolutely. And haters of Joe Rogan will say, "Oh, how dare we listen to him? He is just a comedian." And it's like, "Well, why do you even need to say that? It's obvious that he's a comedian." And I think that just speaks to their fear of him, like the influence and the impact that he has.
Yeah. My kid's 12. He watches YouTube and thinks every crazy story he sees on there is true. But one day he will be an adult. He'll be able to decide, where are the sources that I trust. And I'm trying to teach him that now with limited success. But at the end of the day, we are free. We're free to kind of read fringe sites or mainstream sites. And that's the kind of the cost of freedom in a way. Sometimes art will provoke people in negative ways, but do we censor art? Do we shut it down? Do we have sort of a quota system? I mean, it's free. It's our culture. And I think we're heading to a place where we maybe just don't trust people enough.
You mentioned that you have a son that you parent and he asks questions and you explain things to him instead of just sitting him down in front of the the TV. This is interesting. This is a new thing that I'm hearing about.
That's right. And he teaches me about pop culture too, so it helps. I am so checked out on music, but once in a while he'll say, "This song's pretty good, Dad." And once in a while he's right. So
How old is? Oh, did you say he was 15?
I got a 12 and a 10, so two boys.
Oh, that's cute. Oh, do you like watch what they do? You like kind of heavily police what they watch or the internet that they
You
look
know,
at?
I do as much as I can, but it's a losing battle, honestly. But I try to watch movies with him. I was actually teaching him about movie soundtracks a couple days ago. Like, hey, listen to this song. This is from a movie. Can you identify the two? And just, I mean, I'm a movie guy. I should be teaching my kid about that. But it is really hard. I mean, if he's got a phone or a tablet, they're watching stuff, and so we try to lean over and try to hear what he's doing. But it's really tough. It's really tough. I mean, ask any parent. It's impossible to do it perfectly.
Right, and also, like, you kinda have your own life as an adult too, like, you don't wanna become one of those at the same time, it's like, yeah, you don't want your kid, like, your young kid, like, watching porn or, like, anything crazy, but at the same time, it's like, you don't wanna be, like, a helicopter parent either. It's like, you might just have some default settings and then just try to keep an open
Yeah.
communication.
And one thing I do a lot, especially with my older son, is I try to tell him. Sometimes we'll hear a joke that might be sort of a little not PC, and we laugh at it. But I say, just remember, you can't say this in public. You can't say this in school. And I really kind of hammer home to him that there are certain just subjects just don't go near. I mean,
Really?
it sounds weird. Oh yeah, like anything trans,
Mhm.
don't talk about that because you could get in trouble, and then we're all in
Wow.
trouble. I mean, there's no winning solution there. So don't bring it up in public. You want to talk about it with me, we'll have a good conversation. But why would you even bring it up in public? Just be careful. Be careful.
You're like, "Look, I don't you're only 10. I don't want you to get canceled so young in life."
Wasn't in the New York Times going to do a story about an 18-year-old going to college, and they found a tape of her when she was 15, or a tweet that was sort of
Yeah, she
sexually
was I think
insensitive?
maybe the editor she was working for, I think, maybe 17 magazine or something, one of the
They did
magazines.
multiple stories about this. Yeah. So, if it sounds like I'm being sort of overly cautious, I don't think I am. I hope my lessons are I hope my lessons don't matter. Like it won't be important, but I got to protect my kids.
Yes, having strong parent like, being a strong, good parent is really more important now than it ever was. I think it used to be where you could go to school and ask your teacher, like, about what is a trans person, what is it like, even I don't know, was I bringing up what, like, gay stuff when I was in school? No, because it just I had enough worrying about, like, do boys like me? And, like, what am I haven't figured out my hair yet. But it used to be like you could ask these questions of your teachers, but now it's like who knows what the agenda is of all these teachers, and it sucks because my sister's a teacher, and like I talk to her all the time about this stuff, and we're kind of like minded, but at the same time, she doesn't feel like she can be so outspoken about what she believes because I think she's kind of like outnumbered. Like there's definitely way more lefties, I think, in the teaching profession than not.
Chrissy, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
When it comes to your stand-up and your comedy, do you feel kind of more inspired lately by the culture, or do you find it's handcuffing, or what? How does it impact the work you do?
I feel more inspired and I feel more freed up than I ever have. And I don't know if it's like a getting older thing or having more confidence or just like through doing this podcast and talking to more people. Like I don't feel so alone in my beliefs. And I feel like part of my like purpose in life is to like be a connector. It's like, of course, like if I was just doing comedy, yeah, I want to make people laugh. But I feel like through interviews, like my other purpose in life and fighting this free speech fight is like, yeah, connecting the viewers with whoever I'm interviewing, and it's more just it has freed me up. It has inspired me to take more risks in comedy, and like I think just through doing more podcasts in general, whether it's like on Compound Media or with friends, like the thing that's like going to roll off your tongue, like the top of mind thing that you want to blurt out is usually going to be pretty funny. I think over the years, just like trusting my instincts, and even if it's like you're pushing the envelope a little bit, like I'm going to trust that because
Yeah.
it's a terrible feeling to just like hold back and then you're like, oh man, that would have been great. That would have hit. Um, and a big part of my stand up is to do crowd work, and I feel like sometimes like the stuff I develop with the crowd is funnier than like my prepared material of years and years. And then the best sets are when I can mix both like crowd work and my material and like discover something. You know, you're just like flipping over stones, you know, like that's the whole point of crowd work. And then like you can find the most amazing things underneath, and it's also it's good for the audience too. It's like they could be home watching Netflix, they could be home watching like random whatever YouTube videos I'm on that are like that probably should be taken down because they're old, but they're there, they're in person, so it's like why not give them a personal experience. um just kind of like it's always easier to change and most people like, you know, they do agree with me and they're laughing, but if they don't agree with you, it's like okay, maybe that's a way you can help to like change their mind, you know, is like through laughter. I know it sounds like really corny, but it's
No,
easy,
it's
it's
true.
better to do that than to be like you're wrong, you suck, here's why.
I remember this. I think it's Sticks and Stones, the Dave Chappelle special from a year or two ago. I was watching it. It was very funny and very sharp. He's excellent, but he really kind of was. I could see him pushing buttons and taking positions that we didn't expect. And it's funny, you know, this whole culture. You can't help but imbibe it. Like it's internalized now. Because part of me was thinking, oh, you can't say that. And then I thought, well, why can't he say that? And then as he went on, I'm like, okay, this is why he's saying that because he's trying to get a reaction from us. And I mean, that's the best kind of comedy where, I mean, there's different kinds of comedy. I mean, there's different levels, but I just thought that was really like a master at work where he's kind of pushing us in ways that we don't want to be pushed. And then he kind of circles back and kind of explains some of it, maybe lets us kind of connect some of the dots. It's fascinating. But that's, you know, in 20 years, we're going to remember that. We're not going to remember Colbert's, you know, Orange Man bad jokes. That's it was stale the moment he said it.
Yeah, it's like what a waste of airspace, you know? It's like he's just there is something to be said for like people who are rich and doing great and just not hungry anymore and like they're making so much money that they don't really care about making an impact. Like they'd rather just do what they're told and keep their lifestyle going than try to like push any envelopes.
I watched a clip of Colbert basically laughing away any concerns that Dr. Seuss books are being basically memory hold. I'm thinking, here's a comedian on TV with a great platform, basically saying, "Yeah, this should be taken away. How dare you even defend it?" And sort of quietly saying, "Maybe we should take some more stuff away too." I mean, he's a comic.
Yeah.
He's not a dumb guy, but this is the role he's played for himself, and I guess he can't do something different. Wouldn't it be great if Stephen Colbert went on CBS and said, "This sucks. This is Dr. Seuss. Do we have a vote culturally? You know how many readers have kind of, you know, nurtured a love for the printed page based on Dr. Seuss? And now 6 books are gone. Are they racist? Can we have a discussion about it? Who judges that? Who says it? And you know, it's like if you go on stage and one person gets the vapors, then you know what happens next? What if 90 people in the crowd love your work? One person does it, but maybe that one person's got a pretty powerful social media account. Then you're kind of screwed.
As soon as I heard these books were being canceled, I immediately ordered them. And the first time through Amazon, like my order was canceled because I think the seller realized that they could sell them for like I think triple what they sold me because I bought them like the day they were decided to be like going out of print. So that was some BS. And then I tried ordering them again, and these are not even the real. Like this is a cheap Chinese copy or whatever because that's where they're from. Like there's no spine, there's no like the paper is so thin. And like
Uh,
part of me was like, oh, I'm so angry, I'm gonna send these back. But it's like I do want to see these stories, and I read through them all to see like what was so bad. They're really not. Like in this one, I think they just said like maybe slanty eyes. That was probably the worst thing that was said. So it's like really not that bad. They're really making a big deal out of it. But it
you
got me
want
to buy the
to
books, so maybe
That's right.
there's
There you go. If you want to go back in history and start canceling stuff, there's a whole wealth of stuff, and we're not going to have much left. So, listen, you know, it's good that we evolve. It's good that we don't do everything we did 20, 30, 40 years ago. I think there's a progress here that's undeniable and wonderful. But to kind of just push things away based on sort of current standards. And I think the scariest part is what about tomorrow? What are we doing right now that seems totally cool that may be sort of problematic in 2 years? Who knows?
hmm. Yeah, someone in the chat was mentioning Jon Stewart. I think he's a good example of someone who like sort of straddles both worlds. Like he really, when he came on the scene, The Daily Show, I mean, that's when everyone fell in love with the show and they loved him. And even, and then everyone I feel like was trying to like copy his style. I feel like a lot of the late night hosts try to copy his style. And even recently he came out and did like Colbert's show and was like, they made it in a lab. Like, it was so refreshing. And like, oh, he represents like what so many people are thinking, just
Yeah.
kind of regular liberals.
And also, comedy is not mostly, partly about surprise. If you see the joke coming a mile away, it's not as funny. If you see sort of the anvil about to drop, it's okay. I'm waiting for it. What's going to happen next? But if it's a show that a Jon Stewart comes on and kind of breaks the narrative about the Wuhan lab and the theory of where it began, that's news all of a sudden. It's interesting. I mean, that's better TV. I'd like to see better TV.
Yeah. You once interviewed Kevin Spacey. Did he hit on you?
Oh, I was a young man. I thought I was looking okay, but
yeah, he should have.
Oh well, he was a perfect gentleman. We had a great chat. So he's a talented guy, troubled soul, and who knows what he's been up to. But I don't think he's coming back anytime soon as an actor.
I know.
In a official role,
I would be upset if he didn't hit on me. Like, I think it was like whenever that news came out, it was like a couple years ago. Like all these cases, he ended up ultimately like harassing almost everybody at this one theater except for like a few people. And I'm like, I bet those people are like, oh God, maybe I gotta get in shape. Am I not harassable?
One of the things that's fascinating about Hollywood is that, with Harvey Weinstein, everybody knew. There's a producer, Scott Rudin. He's not a household name, but he's a major player. Everyone knew he was throwing things at assistants and yelling at people and just being a horrible human being. And I think in 5 years we'll hear about another guy or gal who's behaving badly that everyone knew. It's just kind of fascinating how it all is deeply hidden until it isn't.
Yeah, these people have their meat hooks are really in deep here, like with people, and there's money and connections, and a lot of people's jobs are on the line. So you can understand like why they don't just like come out immediately. And I think to even like hack it in Hollywood, you have to be like, just like in any kind of in the world of entertainment, you have to be kind of okay with like some abuse and some mistreatment, or else you wouldn't like even be in this frame of work. Like in this, you'd be like, oh, I'm gonna go work at the bank. That's where I'll be respected. Like you're you know what I mean? You're not becoming an actress or a comedian to like be treated well.
I mean, think about auditioning again and again and again and being rejected. Imagine the looks you get, the dismissive, like, all right, next, we got you, we're good. And just that's, I mean,
you get to a point where you will happily accept crumbs.
That's right.
And then that, like, how that transfers into like how you're willing to be treated. It makes sense.
Years ago, I talked to William H. Macy, who's one of these actors who seems to work round the clock, very talented guy. And he sounded like petrified that he might not get a role tomorrow. Like it's ingrained in you. No matter how good you are, how talented you are, your track record. What's tomorrow? What's next week? Who's lined up for what? And if you're an actress and you're attractive and you're getting older, there's a whole bunch of younger actresses. The Jack Nicholsons get paired with the 30-year younger stars. It must be horrifying.
Yeah, it must make you really insecure. Like, I forget. I interviewed this actress. She was on the OC, and like she was starting to hear like at 30 that she's getting too old. And I interviewed Dominic Lombardozzi, who was in The Irishman, who's gotten so much work. Like he was a child actor and doing tons of commercials, like a whole lifetime of work. But just because he doesn't have like a gig right now, he's like insecure about it. And I'm just like, oh my God, I would hate to be an actor.
That's why they go on social media. They put a little woke little aside, a little virtue signal.
Yeah.
Kind of I'm the pump and see what's going on with my career,
It makes sense. They start to get insecure. Are they going to get work? Or has it been a while since they've had any work? Like, oh, who do I have to impress? I have to put myself out there. I have to, if I'm a little bit like older, what is even older? But who knows? If you think that you're older, what do you have to do to kind of like be like, I'm with it. I'm hip. I know what's up. Like I can do a TikTok. And there's something like a little bit desperate about that. Like when Leguizamo came out and was like rambling about what he thought critical race theory was, I'm like, oh, this is just a buzzword. And he's just trying to let everybody know he's available.
He should have had his agent's number on the bottom of the screen.
Oh my God. Yeah, he definitely should have. Wait, did Howard Stern once read one of your columns?
Yeah, so it was in the mid '90s. I was working in Pittsburgh, and I guess I don't know why they ran it, but I just wrote this ode to Howard Stern and how I really loved him at the time, and I thought he was so clever and unique. And then one morning, the alarm went off, and I thought I heard my name on the radio, and it was him reading my stuff. So I put in a cassette tape to age myself, and I kind of recorded most of it. So he was making fun of my name. It was a highlight.
Have people made fun of your name a lot over the years?
Every day.
Oh no.
I mean, Toto toilets, Toto the band.
Toto toilets?
Oh yeah. You've never used one? Oh, you
No.
should.
I just go in the yard. Yeah.
They have plumbing. It's indoor sometimes, and it's quite good.
I'm old fashioned. Yeah, the Wizard of Oz jokes I get, but I've never heard of Toto toilets.
Yeah, and I remember I was working at the Washington Times, and I picked up the phone, or was calling someone, or someone was calling me, and the guy started singing "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," just like out of the blue. I'm like, okay, that's great, thank you.
Wow.
I'm across the board.
Yeah, like
and my wife took my name, so God bless her.
I was gonna say, you and your wife could dress up for Halloween. Like you'd be the little dog. She'd just get like a huge basket, or
Yeah.
like a little basket with like a hole in the bottom, and then you just like put it over your head, and then you have like a little like dog costume. We could work on something. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Tell me about this new book that you have coming out.
Yeah, it's sort of my first one official. I wrote an ebook years ago, but it was sort of a minor thing. But it's called Virtue Bombs, and it looks at how Hollywood has been basically taken over by the woke culture, how it hurts Hollywood, it hurts storytelling, it hurts the artists, it's pathetic, it's freedom snuffing, and a lot of things we've talked about. It's coming out in January, and pre-orders should be starting soon. I'll kind of let people know on social media, but I'm really excited about it. I don't think there's anything quite like it out there. I think it's important, and it's coming from someone who, the whole reason I do what I do ultimately is I love movies. I mean, I grew up watching Abbott and Costello movies with my dad. I love films. I love it. I just, I want to pass it on to my kids. And, I'm just heartbroken that there are so many people who just want to snuff out freedom, who don't want to kind of celebrate art, who don't want to, be as creative as possible, and who want to kind of clamp down on things that shouldn't be clamped down on. But this is Hollywood. You're fighting for free speech. George Clooney should be fighting for free speech right by your side. Julia Roberts should be there. These actors are all based on it's what's in their DNA. It's why they're wealthy beyond compare, and they're quiet. And it makes me sick. And so part of it is angry, but part of it is hopeful for sure. And sort of a mixed kind of combination. But I hope people like it, and I hope maybe someone in Hollywood reads it and says, yeah, maybe there's a point here. Hopefully.
Yeah, it's what you said about actors. It's like it is pretty icky. It's like you think they would get into acting because they have passion for storytelling, passion for like doing interesting roles and doing good work. And it's like, it's like now it's just like they're puppets.
Yeah, it's survival time. And, the age of the movie star is over where, back in the day, a John Wayne or a Katharine Hepburn would sort of frontline a movie and guaranteed a lot of sales. Now it's all, these sort of properties like the Marvel movies and stuff, and that's fine. But, a Tom Hanks movie is not guaranteed to make Tom Hanks style money. And so I think a lot of these actors are just scared. I mean, and I get it, but they also, I think, should be standing up.
Probably it's because maybe comedians are used to just working for themselves more. So it's less of a jump. Whereas like actors and actresses, like they can't survive without the machine, without their representation, without their management, without their agents. Like who freelance actors, I mean, like that's like you do that maybe in college a little bit, or if you're a freelance actor, you're probably broke. So they probably just don't know anything other than doing what they're told.
Have you heard Robert De Niro without a script? It's not pretty, and he's one of the best actors ever. He's terrible. Years ago, GQ magazine wrote a whole story about how De Niro hates to be interviewed, doesn't want to be interviewed. So they had to like write something, and they concocted this sort of angle, which is actually very clever. I don't think he's just that well spoken, but now we hear he's like, F Trump and this stuff. I'm like, it's not interesting. You're a great actor, but the thoughts coming out just aren't really.
You're a great actor. You're very talented, but shut the hell up. Someone in the chat is wondering what the sucking sound is. Are you someone vacuuming at your place, Christian?
No, I think it's actually
Oh,
my kids were running up and down a while ago, but I think, I don't know, maybe it's my computer humming or something.
okay. Okay. And I was gonna ask you about what kind of dog you had before. Or was that a
It's a
dog or
box.
was that a small hairy person?
It's a dwarf, and he's very sensitive about that.
Yeah.
No, he's a boxer at my feet. I want to put him on camera, but there's some wires here, and things could go south pretty quickly. So if he organically comes up on the couch, I will
You're
introduce him.
like,
But he's a
this
sweetheart.
is all balanced on a cardboard box with books, and you're like, I can't disrupt the setup. I know what you mean.
You literally are predicting what I have right in front of me. I've
Isn't
got
it
a
so
I've got a
funny?
light on a cardboard box, and the box isn't even sealed. It's sort of tilted up so it could fall
Yep.
any minute.
Isn't it funny? Like,
Very professional.
even it was only very recently that I got like a thing to hold my laptop, but like the last year, for a year, I was like, no, we can't throw out this one cardboard box because I need it. This is my media card. This is my laptop box.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, did I cover everything? Yes, everybody, check out his book, Virtue Bombs: How Hollywood Got Woke and Lost Its Soul. It's coming in January. When do you think the pre-sale will begin?
It should be a few weeks away at my publisher. I'm new at this, so I'm kind of leaning on my publisher. But they said we're pretty close. So
Okay. Okay, awesome, awesome. I'm just checking through the chat to make sure I didn't miss any questions. Ooh, from Young P Chang. Hey, finally caught you guys live. Hi, guys. Hello, hello. Thank you for the super chat. Let's see. Any other questions for Christian? Searching through the chat. All right. Oh yeah, check out Hollywood and Toto. That is Christian's website where he writes. Let me pull up. Let me be like really professional here. Hollywood and Toto. I mean, I'm check out the website not just because he's written about me once or twice. Really, just let's see.
and for people who are listening who are fans of you and maybe aren't right of center, I do try to make reviews that are pretty fair and pretty honest. If it's political, I'll mention it, but I don't. I try not to kind of say a movie is bad just because it's left of center. If it's entertaining, I'm happy to kind of promote it. So I just try not to be that guy who just sort of is one sided and predictable, But I will let people know if there's content in it that's woke or progressive, and just say, hey, it's there, and maybe it slows down the movie, maybe it doesn't.
Yeah, you're appealing to people that are underserved right now, and you're definitely filling a hole that has been there for a while. Yeah, Suicide Squad. Yeah, plenty of movie reviews. A lot of great work here on this website. Good stuff. Christian, I appreciate you so much. Keep up the great work. Like you're really one of the few people journalism wise fighting for free speech, and I know I appreciate so much the other comedians that you've interviewed and spoke to. Appreciate it so much. And yeah, I love you, man.
Thanks so much. Go Long
uh,
Island.
and go Long Island. Yeah. And where can people follow you on social media?
My Twitter handle is at Hollywood in Toto, and that's my main. I'm also on Getter, the news site, at Hollywood in Toto as well.
How do you like Getter?
It's clean. I like it from that perspective. It's easy to use. I don't think there's a conversation flow yet. I think they're working on that. But, I mean, I just want more and more people, no matter where your ideology is, to just try different outlets and put pressure on the main ones so they're not being as censorial. I mean, I think that's really important. If a whole bunch of people left Twitter tomorrow and they suffered economically, they might think, well, maybe we should stop banning people for having the wrong thinking. So, try different platforms. I'm on MeWe. I was on Parler. I still am. I'm not on there as much. It kind of, when Amazon took it down, it really hurt. So, just try different platforms and, use your money and use your time and your cloud in different ways and force these big tech companies to be honest and
Yeah.
transparent.
We forget that we really can opt out of this bullshit. And like when I talk about like the vaccine mandates, it's like we can opt out of these businesses. It's like I forget there was a really good thread about it. It's like, oh, you can't go to grocery stores, or like, great, I'll cook my own food. Oh, you can't go to restaurants. Great, I'll make my own food. Oh, you can't go out to movies. Great, I will stay home and We're back. Okay, we're back. Wow, just as I was closing it out. How awkward. Everyone follow Christian. Check out Hollywood and Toto. Can't wait for the new book. Thank you for all the work that you do. Appreciate it so much, Christian.
Thanks so much. I'm glad to be here.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.